All right, guys. Let's go ahead and get started here. I'll just start out. I'll go through some of the Edgeful platforms, some of the different stuff they have. I'll start out just by looking at some of the reports that I like to look at personally. And then if y'all have any other questions or any other reports that you want to see, I'll jump over to the trading view and show some of the indicators and stuff that go with those as well. But once again, if anybody unmute at any point, jump in, give me your feedback, give me your questions. If you want to see a certain report, something catches your eye, just jump in. We'll take a look at it together. I want this to be a group thing, not just me just presenting up here. So, all right, this is a landing page. It just automatically pulls up here, and you see, of course, dashboard is where it's going to land. Ticker SPY, date range. They always have it at a year. So you look down, you see they have some just kind of pre-selected ones. I believe you're actually going to be able to customize your dashboard in this new update that's coming next week. That was one of the rumors that I heard. But let's go over to futures just because that's what most of us trade a lot of. And that's what I trade the most of. So I'm going to go to NQ. We'll look at NQ. First one I'm going to show you guys, and I've gone over this in a video, but I do like looking at this average range report because I can look at, okay, what's our average range? And I can even narrow this down to I can even go back and say, okay, the last month, our ranges, are they different than what they were a year ago if I want to nail this down? So in the last 3 months, our ranges have been, look at that, 240, 247, 224. And if I go back to the normal year report, look much smaller. So over the last year, this is your average range, and a year I think is a good amount of data to go back and look at. As far as report goes, Andre, the CEO of Edgeful, that's kind of what he uses as well. So obviously, you can customize it, but he's the one that designed a lot of this stuff, and so I like using that ideology. Hey, the guy that built this thing is using basically a year's worth of data, but there can be other times where I may want to look a little bit shorter. So like in this case, I dropped this date range down, and I can see the ranges have actually been a little bit wider over the last few months, and kind of take that into consideration as well. But I like looking at this. I don't really follow total volume on NQ. I do follow the range though, and like today, here's basically our opening candle right here. Our total range today was just 118. That's not very much. That's still well within what we normally move on a Wednesday, but we know ranges have been lower, volume's been lower. But a lot of times I use this, and we are a little bit outside of normal trading conditions because of the low volume, low volatility that we're seeing right now. But let's say we would have moved 200 points today. If we did get the outside move up to up in this area, I would definitely be looking to short or at least take off longs at that point. That's one way you can use this report. You say, okay, if our average, we moved 200 points off, from high to low, and if we started down here at 761 and we're up in the 940, 950, I'm definitely going to look to be like, okay, I need to get out of my trade, tighten up a stop. Or, if I'm looking to short, if I have some other confluence there, I may, look at it. Hey, this is maybe a short area. Hey, here's some confluence. We've already moved what we normally move as well. So I look at that. Look at that some too. Gap fill. This is an interesting one because NQ with Globex, which it's a little bit different. I'll actually show you guys gap fill over on SPY and QQQ here in a minute. But you can look at some of these other things, performance trend, how things have happened. So for example, this tells you what months have been the best months over the last 3 years on NQ in general. You can break it down to weekly as well. And you can see right here is where we're at. The blue week right here. So it's basically showing you, hey, this is normally what happens. You see it's going to follow it at times. You've got to consider all factors though. So this is all, putting things in context with the data too, right? Because obviously, if you go back a couple years ago, the post-COVID crash, we had a big run up. After that, we had obviously a big pullback the last year into early 2023. So just something to think about in some of these things. Orb, I want to show you this one. Was there a question? Oh no, we're good. Okay. Hey guys, if you have a question, just jump in anytime. If you have a question, no worries on that. Don't feel obligated to raise your hand or tag me or whatever. But if you aren't speaking, please make sure you stay muted. Okay. The orb. So most of you guys know I use a 30-minute orb. Now they are updating this, and I've been in talks with them. You're actually gonna be able to customize the orb report. But for example, this one they have on a 15-minute. They show you how many times it's broke above, how many times it's broken below. The interesting thing is, if you wait for that first 15 minutes, which I can't wait till this updates to get the data for the 30-minute orb, because that's the one I personally use the most. But for example, on this report, it's telling you, hey, only 4% of the time are you going to break above that first 15 minutes. So like if we get the first 15-minute candle close, here, let's go to a 15-minute chart. First 15-minute candle close right here. So here's your range from right here down to here. This next candle broke it. Only 4% of the time is it going to break here and then turn around and break back here on this next 15-minute candle. That's basically what they're saying on this report. There is full breakdowns. So when you do look at these reports, there's full breakdowns of how that report works, how they built it. It kind of gives you a full description of how you can use it yourself. And then there's also these videos down here, so you can actually watch him go through. Here, I'll just click play so you can see it. So he actually goes through, you can see him talking right here, but he actually goes through and gives an actual example. And these are short videos, 3 to 4 minute videos on all these reports. So it's not like you're watching a lecture for how to do something for 40 minutes. It's a quick overview video, so you can get a visual of how to use these reports as well. So I really like that. Once they get this customizable, where you could do 30 seconds, 1 minute, I don't know if it'll go down to 30 seconds, but maybe 1 minute, 5 minute, 15, 30. Some people even use an hour. I know some other traders that like to use the first hour for their orb. Let me show you guys over on TradingView. If you do sign up with Edgeful, especially if you sign up before they go into the tiered system sometime next week, they're gonna give you these indicators. These are included with right now. They only offer one package, and if you get in now, so I'm not trying to sell you guys, I just want to give you a heads up. It's $35 a month right now, and if you get in now, you're gonna be grandfathered in at that price, and you're gonna get the top tier of what's coming for the current price. Now, I don't know what the pricing is gonna be. I believe that top tier, they were talking over $100 in the broadcast yesterday. So, that's a huge increase in price, which they're coming out with all kinds of new features. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I do want to show you guys, so these indicators, once you sign up with them, all you have to do is send them a message with your TradingView username, and then they'll populate in here under invite only. You'll see all the ones they have, which, this list is growing. When I first started, they only had like 5 or 6 of these, so there seems to be like a new one every other week right now. Here's the opening range breakout one. I've added it twice now. Okay, a little bit of a lag there. Okay, so this one right here is based on 15. I'll go back. I use 5-minute charts mostly, guys, so I'm going to go to the 5-minute chart here just so you can see it. But it's preset to be the 15 minutes, which goes with the report. I personally use the 30-minute one. And you can see this visual. So right here, it's going to highlight the first half hour. So I set it to half hour, so it's going to highlight that orb time, and it's going to automatically mark that high and low. So in the mornings, if you come in and just draw them, that's great. But I like to have this because I can almost immediately, watch that orb develop, and I'm not having to go in and draw it. And especially, if you're in a trade, especially, as fast as futures move, as you guys know, most of you trade futures. A lot of times you don't have time to go in here and draw a whole lot of stuff, especially in that first part of the day when things are really moving around. But you can see, obviously this was a key level up here. And honestly, we almost came, after the close there, we almost came down to the orb low. But you can also look. A lot of these are customizable, so you can put how many days back you want on there. I mean, look at this. The orb was here, and look how we respected that. This was yesterday's session. Look, we just could never get over that orb yesterday. Came all the way back down and really tested the lower side. So there's some strategies around there we can talk about separately, but that's the indicator that comes with that report that I really like, and then obviously the data behind it. So a little strategy that you can add into your basic trading strategy, and then obviously that level, for me, that 15-minute or 30-minute for me, but that orb level that gets set in the morning is usually a pretty important level. There's a lot of ways to play off of that, so I do like that one a lot. And then you can just toggle it back off, right? So like if I don't want to see it anymore, I usually leave this one on all day, but you can turn it right back off. While I'm over here on the indicators, let me show you another one. Market sessions. This one's pretty interesting. It'll actually, and you can customize this one as well. You can customize colors. You can customize the time, the titles, whatever you want. But if you look at this, you can actually see Tokyo, London, and you look at, like I was watching today, and I was saying, okay, here's my London high. This is kind of our Globex from the morning, overnight London type of high. I was kind of looking for this as far as like a target or an area to short, and we never quite made it up there today. But you'll notice it's very easy to see to just do this during the day. For those of you that do trade Globex and stuff, you can kind of keep track of some of this stuff. And then there's a report. Let me find market sessions. Where's market session? So here's a report that goes with that. For example, you can look at London and New York right here over the last year. Of course, we're on NQ. If London closes green, 76% of the time New York closes green, or vice versa, 33. So 1 out of 3 times, if London closes red, the New York session's also going to close red, which is really interesting. And I mean, it kind of looks like it held true in a way. I mean, technically it didn't, in my opinion, close red, but it also didn't just fully reverse, right? So we had red, and then this one basically just stayed inside. So interesting there. You could look at that a couple different ways. You could even say, hey, I probably don't expect this to go up here, right? Because we had a red session. We retraced some of it, but based on the stats here, let's no, don't do that to me. Go back 1 second. Let me pull it back up. I double clicked there. Tokyo and London. Tokyo closes red. London's usually red as well. About the same statistics. And you look at this, it tells you how many times it's happened, right? And it can even tell you how many times, like Tokyo green, London red, Tokyo green, London green. You can actually break it down. So you can really see that and just add some extra data and stuff in there. Let's go over to QQQ. And I'm going to take this back off. The orb works the same here on QQQ, obviously. Once again, customize however you want it there. Let me show you another one I like. Previous day range. Look what we held all day long today. Previous day low. And this is something that, like, just throughout the day I can turn on if I want. Previous day low, we reclaimed it here in the morning, and look, we held it all day long. That's why we were having so much trouble if you guys were watching on NQ. And this works on futures just the same. There's your previous day low. Look at that bar right there. So a perfect visual of, hey, instead of zooming out, where's my previous day low? Guys, make sure we stay muted unless you have a question. Right here, Jason, make sure you mute, buddy. All right, I had server mute him real fast. Sorry. Okay. previous day range though, let me go back to QQQ. Sorry for that slight distraction there. But like, I like to watch the previous day levels, especially, if you're gonna have an inside day, or if you get above a previous day, and back test it. So like, like right here, for example, we were below previous day low, we broke it, and then we held inside of it. We were holding it here, we felled it, and boom, we even got a slight bounce here on the previous day low, right? So, it's another level or something to watch, but you can also look at QQQ. There's somebody else that's not muted. Guys, make sure you're muted, please, just so everybody can hear well. All right, let's find, where's the previous day range report? There it is right there. So like, for example, on QQQ, previous day high broken, 78% of the time you're going to have a green day, right? Previous day low broken, 24% of the time you're going to have a green day. So, for example, on this, we broke the previous day high here. And then when we were down here, you didn't think that this report was going to hold true. And it doesn't always, right? This is just probabilities. But when you do break over a previous day high, you expect to close green at least, right? And that's just, another report that they have on here that you can look at. I use the indicator more than the report on this one, but something to look at there. Let me show you this as well. I like this report. What if I told you over the last year that Monday is the best day for QQQ and NQ to be green? You'd probably say, well, okay, how do you know that? Well, now I can show you, because over the last year, we've had 33 out of 45 green days on Mondays. Wednesday is actually bearish on QQQ, which today we did close red, right? So that kind of makes sense. Now, once again, we're playing probabilities here when we're trading, guys. That's the whole point of this, is we are, we're trying to add data and probabilities to make our trade ideas, our setups, as strong as possible. So that's what I'm looking at whenever I pull these reports. And you can pull this for any ticker. So if you guys are swing trade, if you're in Netflix, Coinbase, I talked about Coinbase earlier this week. I really liked the daily setup it had. It made a really nice move. Coinbase, Tuesday's probably the worst day for Coinbase. That would be a day that I would say, okay, if I am going to try to enter a swing trade, maybe it broke out on Monday, which this is a short week, so just think about this in general, not this specific week example. But say we did break out and I see, okay, we broke out of a falling wedge on the daily. Maybe I wait for Tuesday on a back test to get back in, because Tuesday most likely going to be red. Or maybe if I'm putting on a swing trade for Coinbase, I want to maybe put it on later in the week and then look to take profits on Mondays. I mean, that's just something to add into the perspective of what I'm looking at in a certain trade. And once again, this is for, any ticker out there. You can look at, which NVIDIA I'm sure is probably green almost all the time, it seems like. Look at that. That's interesting for NVIDIA. NVIDIA Wednesdays are red 40% or 60% of the time. They only have 40% of the time that they're green. 76% of the time you're going to have a green Monday. I mean, that you could almost play a strategy where you get in somewhere Friday near a low on NVIDIA and swing over the weekend, and 76% of the time you're probably going to make a little bit of money. That's not an actual strategy that I personally use. I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that's a way you could look at this, a way you could put it into your own strategy. Let's go back over to the futures. I want to show y'all another one that I look at on NQ, which NQ, kind of the same as QQQ, obviously. Look how often over the last, and this I have set to the New York session. I can go down to the full, including Globex, so whenever it opens at 6 p.m. Eastern until it closes here at 5 p.m. I can do the full session. I can do just London. I can do the different pieces there. But, from New York, this is regular trading hours. That's what I trade the most of, so that's what I'm using for this report for most of mine. But once again, you can customize it. But this is interesting. By weekday, it tells you which days are the most green. Look, Monday, we almost always close green. That's crazy. 76% of the time, that's a pretty high hit rate, right? So, I'm not really looking on Mondays for the thing to just flush and break down. It could, and I'm not saying it can't, because obviously 24% of the time it does. I mean, over the last 49 Mondays, 12 of those have been red days, but just something to keep in mind and to add into your overall scope of things. Red and green streaks. This is interesting because this talks about, how many green days you normally have in a row, the most that you've ever had in a row, red days. I mean, if you ever see us go 6, 7, even 8 green days in a row, I mean, we're pushing towards the most that's happened over the last year. And I mean, I could probably go back. I mean, what's the record here? Even if I go back 3 years. Since I am recording and streaming this, my internet's a little bit slower right now. Okay. Yeah, so 10. Over the last 3 years, it's only been 10. So that's an interesting report you can look at. There's another one in here that I like. Where's intraday timing? This one's interesting. I know some of you guys work and you have jobs, or you have like certain windows that you can trade in throughout the day. So this kind of tells you, this is the average high time and low time. This wasn't the one I was looking for. I'm looking for, let me find it. I think it's under volume. They just added this favorites one. Where is that report that shows the timing? It's this one right here. Intraday range window. So this one, you can actually slide this and move it and look at, okay, when is the most range happening? We know it slows down a lot during lunch, for example. Your average range during the lunch hour is only 68 points. And look, someday it was terrible, but only 68 points during this time frame right here. Compare that to, let's look at the first hour. The average range of the first hour, 130 points. So you can actually, if you guys like have certain windows you trade, you can use this. So like if maybe you trade for 2 hours in the middle of the day, you have a break from your job or from whatever you've got going on. You could look at this and you could say, okay, well, I can trade from 9:30 in the morning till 11:30 or something. That tells you what your average range is. So if you are in a move and maybe you got in and you're up 100 points or something, or 80 points, you can look at this and go, okay, how far has the range actually moved in my time frame already? That helps me set targets. So I go, okay, well, by this time, on average, we're only going to move this amount. So I could say, okay, well, that would be a good price target for me to have, and go ahead and lock that profit in instead of holding with hope, holding for the moon, when I can actually put some data behind it. So that's an interesting report as well. Let me jump over to indicators. And this one's really interesting. So pivot points, you can actually look at where it opens. So like based on the pivot points as they update here in about an hour, whenever we get to open, if we open up, for example, between the pivot point and S1 down below it, it'll tell you how likely we are to touch each thing away from it. So like if we open below the pivot point, there's only a 18% chance. Hold on, where is it? Hold on. No, it's right here. I'm sorry. If we open below the pivot point, so between pivot point and S1, there's a 35% chance that we're going to go touch R1. There's only a 9% chance we're going to go to R2. So if we open up between a pivot point, let's look at an example of this. I'm gonna go to, and they have this. So a lot of you guys, if you use NinjaTrader or if you use other trading software, you hear us talk about these pivot points all the time. This is they have the indicator. The only thing right here, use daily based values. Uncheck this. So for those of you that use, you'll see it changes a few points just based on the calculation. So if I turn that off, this exactly matches the one on NinjaTrader that you see Jay Minks post every morning. the ones that I use with NinjaTrader as well, the ones you hear us talk about all the time. I mean, it's a few points away on an 18,000 instrument. So I mean, we're splitting some hairs here, but that this is the way I do it, because it matches the ones on NinjaTrader that most of us are using. So once again, just uncheck this right here if you want to match those up the same, and you'll notice like the pivot point. So this morning I took a long right on this pivot point. We can go over some of the trading stuff if you guys want after I'm done with the Edgeful stuff, but right here, I mean, I longed right here and that was beautiful. But you see the pivot point S1, S2. So because we opened up, let's just hypothetically here. So say we opened up right here between pivot point and S1, which is what I have it set here. There is a 54% chance that we're going to come down and touch S1. If we open up between the two, there's a 23% chance we're going to keep going down even further to S2, and a 35% chance that we're going to go up to R1. But look at this, 9% chance we're actually going to go to R2. So when I'm looking at this, if we open up right in here, I can look at this report and say, okay, let's say we bounced here. Let's say we made it up to R1. If I'm looking at this and we opened up here, just based on the data, if we get up here, I am not holding anything past here to try to go up here, right? Because there's only a 9% chance that we're going to make this happen. So why would I try to hold a runner here and then it come back down and stop me out? Maybe even if I'm trailing it, 15, 20 points, giving it some space, that's 15 or 20 points of profit that I could have taken if I had a better idea of a target in my mind. So if I am looking at pivot points, say I got long here, I mean, that's a great trade, right? That would be a really good trade if this happened. But when I'm looking at this, I'm not going to try to go past this up to here. Now, that doesn't mean it can't come past and go up in here somewhere. There's other factors we're adding, so let me make sure we're clear on that. But I'm not going to use this as a target if we open up down here, because the data tells me there's a low chance. Anything that's under a 10% chance of happening, I personally am not looking for that to happen in my trading style. Everyone's a little bit different, but that's personally the way I'm approaching this. But that's pretty cool. And obviously, like I said, this is so all day long on my trading view chart, I have pivot points on here. I usually have this one on here for previous day range, so you can see the previous day. And I like how it puts the little label here. And on the pivot points, if you ever do want to go back, you can actually look at previous days pivot points as well. If anybody's interested in that. Sometimes you'll see it react off of a previous day pivot point. Basically if you extended yesterday's pivot point, I mean, there's definitely some action there. So I don't do that a whole lot. Every once in a while I may just glance at it, but you can do that as well. Let's see, they have several other. Oh, let me show you guys the gap fill. I really like this one. This will probably be the last one. I'll just go over here. So QQQ gap fill indicator. Let's zoom in here. Let me resize. So we're gonna go to yesterday. Yesterday, as you can see, so this line right here is yellow because we filled the gap. This is based on the closing price, so from close to open. Like I could even, if I just turn off the pre-market, you're going to be able to see this much better. Let me get back to where we were. So, for example, yesterday, we closed here, we gapped up, we came in and filled that gap. We did undercut it, we held the previous day low. Watch this, previous day range. Oh, it's only going back one day, isn't it? Well, previous day low was right here, so that was further confluence in a way. But right here, you can see this orange bar. As soon as it fills the gap in, it's going to highlight that bar, so you can easily see, hey, the gap just filled. This one, we never filled the gap. We filled the gap here and kept going. I mean, but we didn't fill this gap. This was the day where we had a large gap up after NVIDIA earnings, and we bounced a couple times, but we didn't fill the gap until way late in the day. But we had a very large gap, and I'm gonna look at that here in a second. I've made some posts about why I didn't think it would fill. Look at this. Today we never filled this gap. Let's see, how far was our gap here? let's see, the opening price is actually down here. Yeah. Let me go from, that's the opening price, and we'll just put it over here so we can see it. Almost a full % gap down today. We came back up, but we never filled this gap, and I wasn't looking for a gap fill because of how big that gap was. Let me jump over and show this, and we'll go to the gap fill report. So if you just look at this report on the surface, you're going to say, okay, gap up, 65% of the time you're going to fill it. That's over the last 3 years. Let's go back into 1 year. Let's just be nice here. So over the last year, 64% of gap ups get filled. So just period. If we gap up, you can look at this and say, okay, well, 64% of the time it's going to fill. If we gap down, only 57% of the time. So gap ups are better as far as bullish goes, and gap downs are better for reversal. So gap downs usually aren't going to come up half the time they're going to come up and fill. But I like to look at the size of the gap, because if you look at today, and this falls into a decent range, but we were real close to 1%, so you could almost even go over here. Look at this, though. If you have a 1% gap down in QQQ over the last year, it's never filled. There's never been one filled. Only 44% of the gaps of today's size, from 0.4 to 1, get filled. So, in the morning, coming up right here, I was not looking for this to go fill. I just wasn't. It was a big gap. And instead of saying, well, that gap looks big, well, I can actually measure it and go put the data with it. Where was the NVIDIA gap? I believe it was this one right here. I think it was pretty similar. It was over 1%. And this is a rare one because so it is over 1%. We gapped up, and only 33% of those fill. This one did fill, but my thought process was, okay, it's not going to fill right away. And when it came down to here, okay, this is like the previous day highs and stuff. And I think SPY actually gap filled here. But we didn't fill this gap until way later in the day. It took a whole lot of effort, really, for things to finally come down and fill that gap. But I love having this on in the mornings. So like SPY, SPX is another good example, for those that watch that if you trade ES. And you can see, let me delete these drawings. So like, for example, this was last Thursday when we did gap up, that same gap up I was just talking about. SPY comes down and fills it, and look what happens when it fills the gap. I mean, that's a pretty big bounce, right? What, let's see, 950 to 10, so 20 minutes here. That's a pretty big bounce. You went from, 528-ish. Even if you longed here on the gap fill and, had a little bit of a stop loss there, I mean, that's a pretty good bounce. You're usually going to react off of gap fills, right? Gap fill right here, that was the high of our day, the Wednesday before that. So I love this indicator, for one, because it gives me a visual every morning of where that gap is. Here's an unfilled gap. Not everything works all the time, right, guys? But that's what I'm looking at. And then I can go over here. I can look at weekday too. I hear people say all the time, oh, X amount of gaps are filled on Thursdays, which, look, Thursday does have a high percentage of when gaps fill. Monday, gap downs fill back up 75% of the time. That's really interesting to me. So, if we look at a weekend and if we see a gap down over the weekend into Monday, we also know, based on that other report I was showing a while ago, Monday is our most bullish day over the last year. So if I think about this, if I'm going into Monday and I see a gap down, Monday's the most bullish day I have, plus 75% of the time on Mondays, a gap down is going to go fill. That's adding some really cool stats, some really strong numbers into my trading setup for the day. So if I'm going into the day kind of creating my thesis, looking at my levels, looking at what I have to trade off of and what's going on, this is something I can put in there and make a really strong case that, if we have a Monday, or over the weekend into Monday gap down, we're probably going to go fill that, because that's also, there's two pieces, right? That's a bullish day and 75% of the time a gap down is going to fill on Monday. So it's all case by case, right? But there's just so many different reports here. Did anybody? I haven't even checked to see if there's anybody in the chatting to me with any questions. Let me double check that. Let's see. This is from Edgeful.com. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just showing you guys some of the features that are on here. This is actually going to change next week. It's not changing anything. It's already on here. It's just adding and updating a whole lot more features to it, a lot more customization, examples, charts, some AI type of stuff that they're going to put into it. But everything that's available now will still be available and just be improved a little bit. But I do want to give you guys the chance to get in if you are interested in this. There's a 7-day free trial. You can sign up, no risk, cancel under 7 days. It's not a problem. I'll post a link here in a minute for anybody that is interested. But the trading view indicators are included, the ones I was showing you over here. I mean, who knew you could even use pivot points on? You know, some of us probably didn't know much about pivot points before trading futures. You can use those on QQQ. You can use those on NVIDIA, on any ticker out there. You know, it's calculated off the same math. Look at the pivot point today on QQQ. Or I'm sorry, this is yesterday. Pivot point on QQQ yesterday. Beautiful bounce. Yeah, right there. So, I mean, no matter what you trade, obviously these things can apply to it too. So it's not like just specific to futures or just specific to SPY, QQQ, anything like that. I'm trying to think if there was any other reports or anything. There's an economic calendar on here. I mean, there's a ton of other things on here too. It's not just just data reports, but a lot of stuff. You see all these new ones. Wow, inside bars. But it's interesting. I mean, some of these I haven't even gone through and looked at yet because they're brand new. But that's basically an overview of Edgeful and some ways that I use it. Obviously, putting together a plan and then having the data with it, knowing what your stats are. It helps set targets. It helps you maximize profit. So if I can say anything good about this, just from a personal perspective in my trading, it's because I've been able to capture more of the moves. I mentioned this on voice chat earlier today. It's had me set more realistic targets, and instead of at times where I'm looking for a certain move and it doesn't quite happen and I come back down, I get stopped out, it's helping me make better decisions to capture and lock in more profit overall, because I have more informed decisions here. I have higher probability targets, just more overall data that's giving me a clear picture of what I'm looking for, and it's actually improved. It's just for random numbers. Let's say if I averaged maybe 40 to 50 points a day on NQ trades, it's probably improved that by another 10 or 15 points of how much I'm actually capturing and walking home with. Not how much I'm getting from, if I enter here and I have a target up here, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying just how much without getting stopped out, those kind of things. It's just helping me make much better overall informed decisions. So I'll post a link here in just a minute. Did anyone have any questions, any reports, doubts, comments? Feel free to unmute and jump in. Don't be shy. All right, I'm going to post that link in here, and posted it in the chat in here in the stage. So if you are in here, if you click on the little chat box, you'll see I posted a link in there. I also posted it over in the trading floor for anybody that's over there. Like I said, 7-day free trial. It's $35 a month right now. They're about to up the prices. I don't know what the cheapest price is going to be for the basic package. They haven't released all that, but I do know that. Let's see. Where's my channel? Because they sent me an email yesterday when we were doing that broadcast. that you will be able to customize a lot of these reports. So like, the ones that I like, for example, the orb report itself, where's that one? So I'll be able to customize this to 30 minutes or whatever I want there. Daily price breakdowns. They're working in the future on some screeners that will have to alert type of things to them, and some AI integration as well. So there's some bigger things coming down the road. I'm excited about. But if anything, if I'm just being 100% honest, some of these indicators themselves are worth the $35 a month, especially if you're trading futures. I mean, some of these things are let me just just the pivot points and the orb itself. Let me turn off previous day range. And we're coming into the open. I have a pivot point right here, and that, boom, pivot point. Or the orb stuff. Let's see, what day was it that we had a great look at the orb? This one right here. Yeah, so when I had this orb on here, so I'm looking at this. We never got above, no candle ever kind of released and got away from it. Even the candles that this candle tried to close over it right here. If I zoom in a little bit more, you can probably see it. This candle tried to close over it right here, but it never really let go of it. Next candle basically fails it, and then look, we dipped below it, boom, came back, rejected it, boom, we're down for the rest of the day. Rejected it here. Even on NQ, some of you guys that like to scalp, if you got in right here, look at that, 18 points, rejected the orb. 18 points. Even if you did a 10-point scalp, I know some of you guys like to scalp. That's $200 with one NQ right there. How awesome is that to see whenever maybe the second time or third time you're not willing to try it, but almost that first time that tries it, when it comes in and it kind of was slowing down right here and you saw it just wick up, boom, you could almost leave an order sitting here. And what's your drawdown here? Less than 3 points drawdown on this occasion. That's not always the case, right? But just for an example, there's an orb, and then all day long I'll leave this one on here, but you can toggle it off if it gets too busy on your chart. I don't know. To me, that's just having that and not having to draw it myself in the morning, having the pivot points on here on my trading view, especially, those of you that are, some of you are using Trade of 8. We were talking about charting on Trade of 8 earlier, or Top Step X, those kind of things. A lot of us are trading on or charting on TradingView. So what better way to have, the indicators over there, and then you're just running your execution, whether you do it on a DOM or Chart Trader or whatever it is, just running your executions over there. So, all right. Did anyone have any questions? Did anyone want to see anything on Edgeful? I don't know if anybody trades Forex, but they have that on here. They actually have options coming soon to this as well. They're going to have all kinds of data on options and options trading. That's going to be exciting once they get that. I don't even know if there's just so many different things. It's hard for me to be like, okay, which report do people want to see? So if you guys do want to see anything, or just shoot me a DM later. If you want to see something, if you ever want, I'll post it in the chat. I can take screenshots out of this, post it in the chat. So if you have any questions, you can always jump in and ask me, hey, will you pull a report on this? I'm curious, or gap fill, whatever it is. And then Edgeful themselves, they're very responsive. So if you do have any questions, you're trying to learn how a report is set up, how to read a report, you can reach out to them. They're very, very good about answering you. So and if for some reason they don't, let me know, because I'll get to them directly, and I'll make sure and get you an answer for anybody that does sign up and use this product. I do want to look at the trade that I took this morning. Let's see, let me go, I'll just jump to a 30-minute chart. I'm going to turn off all of this real fast. So this was yesterday's close, I believe. Hold on, no. Where were we? Here we go. Yesterday's close. So Thursday with a big fall on that down day. Let's see where you at. There you go. All right. I went to a 30-minute chart here just so you guys could see. So Thursday, to me, we were in an uptrend. We had a low. From that low, we made another uptrend, basically an up move from there. So to me, this is a swing low. This is a swing high. This was Tuesday's overnight high, I think. Yeah, 4 p.m. or 4. No, this was the close yesterday. No, this was the close yesterday. What was it? 4 a.m. Okay. Yeah, so overnight high. But anyways, swing low to swing high. You'll notice, I'm going to zoom in here, but you can see from that spot, we came down and look where we were bouncing off the fibs here at first. And when we fell, we started falling. This is overnight, so I'm not awake. I'm not trading. We started bouncing. This is the half gap. So if I can zoom out and show you guys. So from here to here, we come back down. This is halfway from this up move. We've retraced half of this move, and you see we're getting reactions already there. People are either taking profit or they're willing to start stepping in long. And then the golden retrace that I talk about all the time, the golden fib, the 618, happens to be right here where we kind of left a big gap here, right? When we started having this gap up in the price, especially you look at a 30-minute candle, you can really see it. 15-minute candle, you can kind of see it's pretty thin right here. But you'll notice right where a lot of this stuff is, I have a fib there. I'm going to zoom in here and go to the 5 minutes so you guys can see what I was looking at this morning. So going into open, we've been falling like this, and I saw this bounce, and when this bounce couldn't even come up and touch this one, it was kind of a weak bounce, and we started rejecting basically the lows from yesterday, so previous day lows. Boom, we rejected here, we rejected here. We came down, we failed it. I was waiting on this, and this was right before open. I mean, it was literally 5 minutes. We were on VC this morning, 5 minutes before open. Now let me show you. So I zoom in here. Here's our opening candle of the day. So I had the golden retrace right here. I can also look at my pivot point, 755. You see that pivot point, which that's the second green line. So I know there's a couple green lines here, so it's going to be hard to see. But I mean, within a point of that pivot point right there. So even if you left an order here with a decent stop. So for me personally, I was leaving orders right here to get long, because I was like, okay, I think we're going to react and bounce off here. I have two layers of confluence between a golden retrace and a pivot point. But to even add a little bit more, 750 was a big level. Rizzo mentioned it in some of his analysis, 750 being a whole number or a psych number like we talk about a lot. So for me, that's further kind of protection. So even if we do undercut this a little bit, I think we'll probably have some buyers stepping in there. I was watching on the book map. I saw there was liquidity sitting there as well. So a little bit further confluence. So to me, that is an A+ setup. I'm going to take that swing every single time. Maybe it doesn't go in my favor every single time, but even if it does 6 or 7 times out of 10, I'm going to win, right? Because as soon as I bounce here, for example, I like to take 2 or 3 on a long. As soon as this goes in my favor, I'm already trimming one by here for sure, if not sooner. I mean, that's 20 points already. And look, we immediately pop back up here. I was looking for around this level. Honestly, you could have held this one probably a lot longer than I did. I was happy with the move. I don't like personally trading the beginning of that, but even there from the pivot point and basically that fib area, I mean, that's 40 to 45 points. To me, that's a great trade already. I'm locking in my profit in a few minutes, within 5 minutes or so of the open, of the day start. I've already hit a big trade. I've already pretty much hit what I want to do for the day, which today, thankfully, worked out really nicely, because the rest of the day, if you stayed long, that's great, because look, one thing I was looking at from this fib, so when I look at fibs, right, the 618 or the golden retrace, it's a very common fib to bounce off of, and I watch these so often, I kind of know their dance step a little bit, is what I'll say. So I kind of can tell based on what they normally react to. So when we go through a certain fib, for example, we go through a halfway retrace like we did right here, and we bounce off of the golden retrace, a lot of times we're going to come back at least to here, but we love, NQ especially, loves to come back to the 382. So after it bounces here, it loves to come back to this one. And so that for me is a target. That's a trade. If I did hold past here, so if we weren't in that first probably half hour, I would have looked to probably try to hold this. I probably would have moved stops up, take my trim, probably break even stop, maybe start trailing it up a little bit more. But once we got here, I definitely would have been looking for an exit. And honestly, you could have even looked to short right here. I mean, look at that perfectly on this fib. I mean, look, both these 5-minute candles, right? Look at those. Both are right there on that 382 fib line. I mean, that's about as clean of a rejection as you're going to get on an 18,000 point index or instrument, which is a beautiful rejection too. I mean, how far did it come back down? Like 30 points or so. But basically, I took this trade here because I had all these layers of confluence. To me, that was a super high probability setup. Now, if I look at, let me turn off the pivot points, which we did have a pivot point up here, but I'm going to turn that off because I want to look at one other thing first. How do I hide? Let me hide the drawing. Here's your previous day low. So I was talking about this a while ago. So just on the visuals, we reclaimed that previous day low. We held it, and then that was basically our support all day. So we were literally pinging between the previous day low and basically the upper orb. We tried to get over it a couple times. We could never really get going. I mean, obviously, even if I look back on my chart, you see all these candles right here, see where we bounced overnight. That was basically our upper resistance, right? So, I mean, that's one way just throughout the day. I'm just eyeballing this and going, hey, this is probably not somewhere where I want to play continuation. The way things kept getting bought up, I wasn't really super excited about, and since we never lost this, I wasn't really excited about trying to long again. I think I tried it right in here. It was VWAP. Here, let me turn off. Let me guys show you the VWAP indicator I use. It's just the basic one, but I talk about the outer VWAP band all the time. Sorry, I like the orange. This is what I'm used to. So when I talk about the outer VWAP band, notice where we rejected. Right here both times. Pushed and couldn't get out of that outer VWAP band. Right down here we were well below it. We reclaimed it and went. So I have this on as a visual too throughout the day with these other things, right? This is when y'all hear me say outer band all the time, whether it's in the Discord or on Spaces, this is what I'm talking about. This it's literally the VWAP, band 1, band 2. I mean, it's about as easy as it gets, really. I mean, there's no secret there. It's just another indicator I like to use. Obviously, EMA. EMA 9. So today was a terrible day to try to watch this. I mean, the only thing would be like right here. This was, we were trying to get below the previous day range, but we held that 9 EMA right there. When we ripped up here, we were really extended from that. Honestly, I thought we would probably come back and test this before we did anything like that, but we didn't. But we did hold the 9 EMA right there. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can look at this, and there's no set in stone thing. Everyone has their own strategies too. Look at the 21 EMA when it came up to it right here. So I just changed that to 21. I have both on my chart during the day, but just for the visual purposes here. We never really let go of the 21 when I say let go. So like right here, you see how we're not even touching it anywhere? When we got down here, even below it, right here, we're kind of rejecting it, but we still had, VWAP right there as well. I don't know. There's a few different ways to look at this. Obviously, in the afternoon, we started rejecting it, try to get above it. We even did get a decent amount above it. honestly, right here, a lot of people probably got trapped long. um, they're late in the day because you got above this level here. The only thing was, I believe there's a pivot point right there. Boom. So that's why I have all these things on my chart, because when I see multiple things line up together, that's when I like to try to take a trade. When I see, like, for example, if I was looking at, let's just look at this right here. So we had a lot of consolidation here. We were holding this previous day low was right here. Boom. We're holding that. Here, I'll just leave that on there. We're holding that. I mean, for what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, that's 40 minutes basically that we spent holding this area, and then headed back up. We were under VWAP, rejecting VWAP. We were reclaiming, breaking over VWAP, breaking over the 21. And right here, you could almost say, okay, do I want to get long? Well, I have this pivot point up here that I don't really care for, the S1 pivot point. So I have to be careful, because if I wanted to long right here, for example, yeah, I could long the back test. I have VWAP and the 21. I have 3 things here that I could say, okay, I like this for a back test entry. We broke out, we're back testing. And even if you did take it, 36, 37 area, you got a decent move. You almost got 20 points. The problem is you have to be aware that this pivot point's here too, because boom, as soon as we got back into the pivot point, the place we just rejected, we rejected again, made another lower high. So all day today with lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. Never broke that trend. This starts becoming, you had a low here, and then you start to have lower low, or not this one. This one, lower low, lower low, lower low, and then you saw where the floor finally just gave through on us. And look, once we got down below, and this was right at after hours, so it's kind of weird, but once we got below, we started rejecting that halfway retrace point that was previous support, failed, and we came back through it. We really didn't even bounce. I was hoping this was going to come down to here at some point, so I could try to get long, but just couldn't do it today. I don't know why. Intraday, you could have drawn fibs if you wanted, like this in the middle of the day too. Let me delete that other one off. Okay, intraday, if I'm drawing a fib, here's my low of day. We made a high. Once we make this lower high here, I mean, I can go ahead and draw it here. Once I see that, like we came from here up to here, and that's pretty clear trend. But once this candle right here to me is break a structure. Any type of trend that we had, so like if you look from this right here, any type of trend that we may have had is completely broken. You can use an EMA to kind of see that as well. Like even the EMA 21, for example, was broken. A 9 is a pretty good way to tell break a structure too. We got all the way under the 9. So then I can draw this, turn this up. Then I can draw this fib intraday today. So this is, right before open. And then by 10:50, we had this high right here. We came down, look where we bounced first, which actually first we bounced on the first fib, go figure. And when I see a fib that's also a kind of a whole number type of area, it's something to watch for as well. But notice we bounced on this and came back up here, made a lower high. When we came through it, we started bouncing on the 382 fib. So that's one thing I'm watching for. I actually was looking for a bounce play long here. I also had VWAP right there to look at. So the orange line you see, VWAP was lined up right with it. So I was willing to take this, and honestly, you could take this long here and even use this as your below this as your stop loss. So this was actually the 15-minute orb. I used the 30-minute, but this was the 15-minute orb, but this was the spike in the morning, but this was also the half back of the day. Let me turn this back off. So looking at this, we bounce right here, we come back up, and look where we fell, the fib. We come back and we're bouncing and holding this fib again. We came back up here and we felled the fib. And then right here, I personally was looking for this to happen down here. It didn't, but we had a previous day low kind of right there as well. I mean, Wasn't perfect. Now later in the day, it still was when we finally tested it here, but nothing's ever going to be perfect. But um, when we did this and we bullish engulfed right here, okay, I was looking for this to continue. I wasn't trading it at this point, but I was looking for this to continue, and I was really hoping that first fib that I drew a while ago had some levels up here that I would have looked for. I'll go back and show that just in a second, but let's continue looking at today. We did finally look when we hit the halfway retrace. This is just of the day, so just from, basically right before open, which was the overnight low as well. So swing low to the swing high, the highest point we had of the day. By staying under it right here, we kept this fib valid for me personally because we didn't exceed the range. And then look, we bounced right here, that halfway retrace. This was a good spot to try it, and you could have easily taken it from 17 to 32 and gone ahead and had a trim here or held one. I mean, from here to here within 5 minutes, that's a nice reaction type of trade. And then if you left a runner down here at break even, or just a little bit down here after you've locked in, you maybe a little bit below it in case it comes and tests it twice. But you could have got a really nice trade out of that. Was that 17 to 62? I mean, that's a pretty good trade, especially on NQ. And then once again, we started felling it. Let me go back and draw. Draw this one as well. So here's what I was looking at as well. This was, from the high to the low. So once we made that first retrace I showed you guys, here let's go through the progression real fast. I've got some time here. Reminder, guys, if anybody has any questions, unmute, send me a chat, whatever it is. Let me go to here, we'll just go to an hourly chart just so you can see it. So here's my progression when I'm looking at this, right? So the first thing, this was last week, I'm drawing this one, and I'm looking at this stuff. Here's the golden retrace here. We blew right through it, but we kind of used it as support overnight into Monday. I wasn't really trading over the weekend anyway, but once we made this move back up, and then, we're kind of breaking structure right here, and you can see it on the hourly. To me, any type, move here, this is starting to break structure. Maybe not quite here, but close enough. But definitely this right here is starting to break structure, or obviously this downtrend. So going into today, so this is, when I'm waking up this morning. Here's your golden retrace here. So let's not pay attention to this right now because we're just looking at what happened today. So from here to here, I've drawn that. This is where, I took the trade obviously at the open, or right before the open, and we had a nice bounce. Once we have this bounce, then I can also look to draw from where we fell from to there. And once again, let's go to 15-minute chart to see it. But from that high we made, because this was the high of day yesterday, because we flew there at the end of the day. This was all pre-market stuff. But from this high to this low, we made it to the halfway retrace, and that's where we were sticky all day long today. I mentioned this on voice chat as well. If you look at, here's your 0.5 fib from, and this is from where we fell, once again, yesterday at the close to basically right at the open. So this move down that we made, we retraced it halfway. It looked like we were going to support here. I was hoping we'd come see this, because not only did we have a golden retrace here, we also had the overnight, or the London session high. I guess the overnight high was actually more, but the London session high, kind of the pre-market highs were up in this area. So honestly, once we got up into this area, I was wanting to short it from up here. This is the area I wanted to try to short at next. But since we never came there, I really didn't care to try to short it, because it didn't come far enough up for me to want to short it up here, because there was still a probable chance that we may go visit this area. But But then once we started doing this all day, I just said, okay, well, I'll either wait till we're up here, or I'll wait till we're back down in this area to try a trade. That's kind of kept me out of trouble through the middle. Now you could have scalped, obviously. So like in this scenario, if you drew the fib overnight, once we lost the 50, we came back to this one again. You can see it. This would have been a nice target. You see the 805. So if I can draw fibs from multiple directions. And look, here's confluence right there. 2 fibs sitting at the same spot. And so like if any of this would have come down, it had an outer VWAP band. So anywhere in this area, if this would have fallen, and that's what I was hoping would happen. I've got like 3 layers of confluence here, plus just the whole number of 800. Plus there was liquidity sitting here. So if this would have fallen, I would have taken this trade all day long. I would have tried it just because I have multiple layers of confluence there between different indicators, different studies, reports that I'm looking at. All right, guys, we're right at an hour since I started this thing. Did anybody want to ask any questions, comments, thoughts? Open mic. Unmute, ask me a question, type it in the chat if you don't want to talk, or if you can't talk. All right, well, if y'all don't have anything for me, I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down. But yeah, great session. I don't mind doing this often, or at least, the back half of this video as well. But I did want to give you guys a look into the Edgeful a little bit more. I did record this. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.